Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to our informal chat with Reverend Bill McDonald, who is joining us from what looks to be Mount Shasta, although he's got a picture in the background of the Neowise comet.
Because of the virus, that's a virtual Mount Shasta. That's where my heart is at right now.
Yeah, and I'm actually in Mount Shasta, so you can perhaps see the giant mountain behind me. So I'm physically here because I already survived the virus, so a little bit lower risk for me to travel. And so anyway, welcome everyone for joining us. We're here with Reverend Bill McDonald. He's a teacher and yogi and spiritual master, and I met him a couple of years ago through a connection of Anand sent me his talk and then reached out to him, and he kindly met with a few of us spiritual seekers and spoke to us about the spiritual path. We are very appreciative and have really appreciated all of his insight and guidance and sharing his own experiences on the path. So we're excited to, Reverend Bill McDonald is also a Vietnam vet, and you know, spent quite some time serving our country as a war hero, and in addition to traveling to India, which hopefully he'll talk some about his experiences with spiritual masters and seekers there. And now he lives in California, and we're excited that he's here with us today, and that we've all been able to join with him. And to begin, we'll just ask Reverend Bill to maybe say a few words of beginning before we open it up to questions.
All right.
Welcome,
I don't know if I'm qualified to be a master of anything, except maybe be a master of ceremonies. And you said to say a few words, so a few words. There you go. I just said a few words for you. So anyway, my heart is in Shasta today, and we were talking about this before we went live broadcasting this. This photo was taken within the last month and a half, I guess, maybe less, when this comet that travels 7,400 and some years to complete an orbit around the sun. So every 7,100 and some years, this thing shows up, and it showed up during this virus, which is kind of interesting. And that's a shot of it going to the sun to turn around and come back. Just this last month or so, and Jennifer's telling me that it's made a return trip, and it's already been back over Shasta again on its way back. So it's kind of significant. I think it's kind of beautiful, but it makes an interesting shot. And Shasta is just for those that live in India, or James in Wales, and I know Wales they call some hills, some bumps in the road, mountains. They don't have a mountain. This is a mountain, Shasta. And that's 14,000 some feet up, and it's not the biggest mountain around, but it's a nice sized volcano, and it's got special attributes. It's got special energy, and we talked about that the last time we were on the air. But last time I was talking, I mentioned the power of a shivaling. When I went to the ashram in India, just outside of Pune, in the jungle forest, about 30 some miles from the city, there's the world's largest shivaling. It's made out, well, not just the shivaling, it's the world's largest solid mercury shivaling. Now, you know that mercury is a liquid, and it's almost impossible, and there's only about a dozen people in the world that know how to work it to make it into a solid, and they created this 2,000 pound plus shivaling. Anyway, it's said that if you meditate on and look into the shivaling with super focus when you're meditating, that you can see things. Which brings me to a book that I was sharing with Jennifer before we went live. I don't know if you can see this, but it's about the guru-disciple relationship. It's a book that it's kind of become my internal mantra. It's how I measure this whole thing about, because I've had a lot of questions about guru-disciple relationships. Do you need a guru? Do you want a guru? Can you find God without a guru? Who is the guru? Is the guru within? Is it out? And it's interesting because I had those questions when I was up there looking at the shivling, and I don't know if you can see that, but these two figures, these robed figures there with the shaved heads, one's a man, and the other is his disciple, this woman. And I didn't know at the time it was a man and a woman. But I saw these two images inside this solid mercury shivling. And it was like, for those who've been to Disneyland, or you can imagine if you hadn't been, they have these holographic things like at the haunted house where you can look at this globe and there's this woman's face that turns around. You can see 360 degrees around this person. It's three-dimensional. It's life. I mean, you know, if people saw it 100 years ago, they would have thought there was a ghost, right? But inside the shivling was like somebody turned on a holographic screen. And these two robed individual monks appeared before me. I didn't know who they were, never saw them before, didn't know anything about them. But it was interesting because my question in my meditation when I got through was basically all about who's the guru? How do we treat the guru? And I had all these unanswered questions. And so when I saw that, I figured that must have been part of the answers. So I kind of left and I walked down from the little hilltop that the temple's on at the ashram, and I walked down to the office where I was working in the office there. When people were checking into the ashram, I was checking them in and getting them a place to stay and making sure they had a bed and all that, and taking care of some of the things for the ashram. And on my desk, sitting there, was this very, very same exact book. This book was there. And I don't know if you could see it, but, and let's see. There you go. See its signature? It's a signed copy. So this is waiting for me after I see them, and I see the book and I look at the cover, and it's exactly who I just saw inside the shivling. And of course, the book is about guru-disciple relationship, which was my question to God. What's the whole story about guru-disciple relationship? And once I read that, and it's got a couple of interesting passages, because the first section I just kind of randomly kind of did a thing, and there was a business card or from the bookstore or something that was in the middle of the book. And when I opened it up, it's chapter 21, it says God is a guru, and it goes through all these different things, but it says, guru reflects the form of whatever one assumes him to be. If one regards him a liar and a cheat, he is that. If one regards him as wise and noble, he becomes that. Guru can even assume the form of God if one's faith and devotion lead one to believe that he is God. You have to realize that it is in the guru that we are only reflecting ourselves. That it is why it is said that only those who see their guru as God are fortunate enough to see God face to face. So think about that. Everybody gets into this human being as this character, this name, this ego, this personage as their guru, when they're missing the whole thing that it's the God within the guru that's the same God within us and within all gurus. All gurus are the same God. And if you worship the God in the guru and you worship your God as your guru as God, it's one and the same, then you haven't missed anything. Even if your guru doesn't measure up to your standards, whatever they may be. You know, we all have these expectations. Our guru can't have dirt under his fingernail. He has to be clean. He has to have a beard, no beard. He has to have a shaven head, long hair. I mean, we got all these things. He has to be kind. He has to be nice to me. You know, he has to tell me he loves me. He's been looking for me. We have all these set things, and that's got nothing to do with reality. Your guru comes to you because you invited the guru, and the guru comes when you're ready. And you get the guru that you deserve. That I hear a lot. So the guru ultimately picks you You don't necessarily pick the guru. I've heard that as well. But to me, that also could mean by your vibrations, by your love, by what you put out into the world for prayers and your meditations. You are selecting the person that comes. You are sending out the invitation that will attract this person to you. So people ask me, who should I follow? And I ask them who to follow. And I say, that's good. That's good. That's all right. I don't find fault with any of them, even though 1,000 people could find fault with somebody. And because I look at the same thing. It's all one guru. Now, there's some people out there that are leading the blind, and they're blind. You got to have a little discretion and some intelligence, a little wisdom. But for the most part, the guru does reflect who you are and where you're at. So if you're looking at your guru and you see nothing but God and gold and goodness and kindness and devotion and all those things, you're seeing it within you. Remember, the book says it reflects who the disciple is. And I truly believe that. It's like if you think the world is a hard, cruel, nasty, vicious place, it is. If you think the world is kind and compassionate and wherever you go, it's going to be great. I was watching, here's somebody you might want to tune in on. I discovered a woman that died in 1981. She was in an automobile accident and got killed. But in 1953, January 1953, she began a walking pilgrimage across the United States. Her name, they called her the, what was it, the Walking Pilgrim or whatever it was. And she stopped counting miles after 20,000 miles, but she spent like 20, 30 years after she retired, gave up all her money, her beautiful house, everything. And all she took was what she was wearing, and she had pockets, and what she had in her pockets. And she wouldn't eat unless somebody fed her, and she wouldn't stay someplace unless somebody offered her a place to stay. And she traveled over almost 30 years. A wonderful, the Peace Pilgrim, that's her name, the Peace Pilgrim. And simple philosophy, but that's what she chose to do. But I learned something from watching her. She was totally at peace, and her message was really simple. If you want peace, give peace, be it love. If you want love, give love, right? Don't fight anybody. Don't send anger out. Don't send hate out. So if somebody does you wrong, love them back. Philosophy sounds very familiar to St. Francis and everybody else that's ever been a great saint. They all say the same thing. It's not what people do to you that defines you. It's what you give them that defines you. So somebody could be really rotten, mean, nasty to you. They could be disloyal, which is like one of the worst things you can do to somebody is betray their trust. And we know that from marriage. We know that from Jesus and him getting betrayed and hung on the cross, from Judas. I mean, betrayal is like one of the worst things. And yet even that is forgivable. And we've been shown that throughout history, that the great ones who almost always have always been betrayed and been persecuted and been picked on and been criticized. I have a friend that he was doing some videos. He did one or two, and then he got some real nasty, comments and stuff, and about blow the guy away. It's like, oh my God, 50 people liked his video, and one person thought he was a devil worshiper. And I'm telling the guy, I says, look, if you haven't ruffled the feathers with somebody, if you haven't offended anybody, then you haven't spoken your truth. Because nobody's going to agree with you 100%. Never, ever 100%. So you can't send your message out pasteurized. You boiling anything out that might upset somebody. Oh, I better not say that because, I believe children should be born, and if they're aborted, that'd be terrible. So I can't say that because I'll offend somebody. Well, you know what? Everybody's got their own truths. Speak your own. Be honest about your own truths. And those people that disagree with you, that's okay. They could disagree. Hopefully they could just look and say, okay, that's another side of the coin. Somebody disagrees with me. And just because I say something or you say something or someone else says something, doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it the only truth. And as you get older, you find out things that I said in my 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and yesterday. When we were recording, Jennifer. I mean, there's some of the things I thought about then. I thought afterwards, I thought, oh, does that still hold water? Or did I just put some holes in the very bucket that I had built, right? So you can't be holding to the same set of beliefs and philosophy. You have to be willing to go out and change yourself. Don't worry about changing anybody else. If you change yourself and become authentic, and I mean this because I've met a lot of people. Jennifer, you're one of the few that are fairly authentic. If you're hurting, you say you're hurting. If you're not hurting, you say, if you're happy, you're happy. You let it out. You're real. But I've met a lot of people that they're masking everything. They're not really even true to their own feelings. And that's kind of sad because, well, if I'm sad, that's gonna make my family sad. And, and if I disagree with my husband and, and if I speak out of turn, this group won't like me. If I ask questions and I have it, the gatekeepers are going to kick me out of this group. Whatever it is, you can't be concerned about the consequences as long as you're speaking your truth and not deliberately going out to hurt somebody. For example,
Reverend Bill, can I ask a question about that? So, I think for me, sometimes I feel like I'm kind of like the naive spiritual seeker. Like I've been maybe 3 years on the path, and I find some of the things that happen in the sort of, I'm following the Eastern tradition as well as my background, Western Christian tradition, which I still am. And I struggle to make sense of it because on the one hand, you're trying to listen to what people say, the guru, like disciple relationship. I've read all kinds of things, like some of the book that you suggested there, some from Shivananda. And the question is, sorry, my kids are here. And my question is, like, sometimes when when the guru does things to test you, like Neem Karoli Baba used to ignore people and make up situations to test, like make Ram Dass angry. I feel like, my Guru Shree has done things to upset me. I feel like, I don't know if this is true or if I make it up in my mind. And then I get frustrated and I feel upset and then hurt. And then how do you deal with that? Because I know I've asked you this before, that it's about ego, but how do you forgive and like, just, like let it go and move on and be like, okay, well, this is my lesson. I guess I need to just, be compassionate. I don't know. I struggle with it. So I would love, given you just talked about that, like your insight on how do you deal with that? Because I'm sure you've seen this take place. You've mentioned before with others. Thank you.
I remember going to a retreat at a state park in Southern California in Pacific Palisades area. I can't remember the name of the state park, but it was a beautiful park. It was right up the street from Self-Realization Fellowship's Lake Shrine, and down the street from Will Rogers State Park. So it was right in there. Beautiful area. And this gentleman shows up, and I was in the cafeteria eating with everybody. We're all eating together. And Gurunov, who was his retreat, had just been sitting. Gurunov came all the way across this place and passed hundreds of places he could have sat. And he looked around and I saw him ask somebody, where's Bill McDonald? And somebody pointed and he's coming over. So he sits next to me, asked somebody to move over, and he sat down. And, I wasn't attracting him. I wasn't trying to get his attention, but he had showed up there, right? So Gurunov leaves and I'm sitting there. And then this guy comes over afterwards. He says, I saw that. The guru comes over to you and he engages with you. And he says, and I've been looking to find him, and I'm looking for this sign from him to tell him, welcome back. I've been looking for you. Give me a hug. Give me a sign. Give me something. And I walk right by him 3 times this today and yesterday, and he just walks by me, doesn't even look at me. And I'm kind of like, and I'm angry inside. This is not right. And he spends all this time with you. And so he starts berating me, and I'm just quietly listening. And he's angry. He's angry at me because the guru paid attention to me. And he felt it was unjust that this, maybe it's not his guru, because he was expecting when he found his guru, the guru would instantaneously recognize him welcome him there, welcome home, and he'd get that recognition. Totally the opposite. Totally the opposite. So when he got through ranting and raving and literally screaming at me very loud, like, who the heck do I think I was? Some kind of special person, So, and I told him, I said, look, I said, if you're expecting something in particular from the guru, it'll never happen. You're telling God what you want. It's like praying that you need transportation to work and you're asking for a brand new Ferrari and God gives you a used Volkswagen, right? So you get a used Volkswagen, it gets you a job. It's exactly what you need, right? But you're demanding from God you want a Ferrari, right? So God knows what he wants. And the fact that you were drawn there should be enough. You shouldn't expect to have special treatment because you're special and you need the guru to treat you like and recognize you as special because you made this trip across the United States to see him, that he should be recognizing you. And so he did. And I said, look, when you're not expecting it, God will give you something even greater. And he left in a huff. That was it. Just the last day of the retreat, the last hour of the retreat. And the last hour of the retreat, there's a drawing. They had these things where you fill out a little ticket, and, from your retreat ticket, and the guru was going to draw 2 tickets, and each of those persons would get a personal copy of his latest book. I'm not sure if it was Wings to Freedom or if it was Babaji Lightning Standing Still. It might have been Babaji Lightning Standing Still. And he was autograph it to them, bring them up, put it in their hands, and bless them in the book. 2 tickets. The guy sitting right directly in front of me, right? Oh, back part of the story. So he's sitting directly in front of me because he thinks, well, wherever Bill sits, the guru will be, right? In the middle of the lecture, about an hour before this, the guru, Gurunath, leaves the podium, leaves where he's sitting, comes all the way to the back of the hall where I'm sitting because I want to be low key, low profile, hidden away. I'm sitting in the back by myself on a blanket, and I don't do that very well because of my legs and hips and everything, but I'm very uncomfortable back there. I'm sitting back there, and he comes, and everybody's watching him, and he walks right up to me, and he looks down, and he goes, B, can I sit next to you on your blanket? Yeah, sure, And this guy turns around and his eyes are about that big and he's angry. He's like, like rubbing it in. It's like his mind. He's rubbing it in. I can read his mind. His mind's saying he's rubbing it in, right? And then the guru makes this elaborate thing of looking around at everybody except him, directly in front of him. Looks this far and then he lifts his head over. And it was deliberate. It looked like he was just looking at everybody but him. So, and he sits there and then he goes, okay, I got to get back up. So then he gets back up and he goes up there and then he talks a little bit and then he ends it with somebody doing the drawing. They have him reach into a hat. I think it was my hat, to be honest with you. Anyway, he reaches into a hat and he pulls out this ticket. And the first ticket he pulls out, and I knew it was going to be this guy. It was the guy, right? Reads the numbers off and the guy goes, and he gets up and he turns around and he looks at me and I just kind of go, I told you, in your own way, in your own time, things happen. And he just, tears were rolling down his cheeks. He was bawling like a baby. He was just, and he kind of went up the front very meekly. And he kind of put his hands out very meekly. And then the guru just took his book and just put it in his hands and grabbed onto it. And the guy started to take it and he just held onto it. The guy couldn't get the book, right? He just held onto it and he looked at him right in the eyes. I just kept staring at him, like about 20-second stare down, right? Then he goes, and the guy just kind of fumbled over and tripped. And he comes back to go sit down in front of me and he's just, thank you. And I said, no, don't thank me. It's the universe that did this, God that did that, it's the divine. Because his desire was so great, he felt so rejected that I, maybe others, but I've been praying for the 2 days since he did that to me, for love and light to fall on him. I was praying for that and I didn't want to tell him that. But my desire was to see that. it was good for him, but it was even better for me. If that makes any sense. It was something I needed because I saw the hurt in this guy. And I wanted to do that not just for him, but every devotee. And so I take his story and I try to share that because that guy was every guy or gal. Everybody wants to walk into the ashram, the temple, the guru's house, you know, walk across the lawn, someplace there's a holy man. You want the holy man to turn around and say, Jennifer, it's you, I've been waiting this whole lifetime. Where have you been? Hold my hands. Come on. Let me take you to the top of the mountain. Everybody wants that. Even James. James, you've been waiting for it, right? Except when I took James, I don't know if James Thomas, who's watching this thing, I took him to see Gurunov in England, I think it was. And Gurunov was in the hotel lobby and say, oh, Bill. And I go, who's your friend or something like that. And next thing you know, he's saying good things and he's actually eyeballing and talking to James. And so, and then I think James was asking me about, you know, what was that all about? I said, look, I said, James, he doesn't do that to anybody. He doesn't do it to anybody normally. He kind of ignores everybody. I always get a hug, but he ignores everybody. But he says, he saw you. There was a connection because you needed that, you know, for whatever reason, you needed that, feel that. And you're my friend, and he knows how it hurts me if I didn't do that, because I always want my friends. Yeah, I'm not selfish. I have this thing. If I have a special experience, if I read a good book, if I watch a good movie, if I have a good piece of candy, whatever it is, I want to share it. I want other people to feel what I felt. And I get a greater joy out of that. So that's why, to answer your question, why are some gurus angry and mad and all that stuff? I'm not going to miss that part of the question. We'll go there. But each person is treated differently. For example, Gurunov knows how I feel about my friends and other people. And sometimes if I've done something he doesn't consider it up to snuff, like, you know, I didn't get something done on time, or I did some other thing, you know, or, I mean, they're not major things. I mean, they're little things. But if I fell out of favor somehow, he'll never tell me. He'll tell me, well, you're old. That's okay, Bill. You're doing a good job. But then he'll yell at the person next to me. And that was incidentally nothing. And I've got to sit there and watch this person get beat up. I go, no, Gurunov, don't do that to him. I was, you know, no, Bill, you're all right. No, I'm the one that, no, Bill. And they tortures me like that, right? So each of us have our button that they can push. Now there's some gurus that they'll look at the disciples and they what I call the ego meter. They take a look at the ego meter. This guy is coming feeling and it's usually the smartest person in the room that comes in with the biggest ego, because intellectually they're far ahead of anybody else in the room. They figured they're the smartest person in the room. They understand all these concepts. Yeah, I understand that. I understand this. They got knowledge when they walk in. They don't necessarily have wisdom, but they have knowledge. And those that work in Silicon Valley, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of guys, Steve Jobs and all these other guys had lots of knowledge, engineering skills, but wisdom is a whole different thing. So the guru will see this ego in somebody, and they won't ever recognize them. In fact, they'll make them the least of the group. They'll give them the stupidest jobs to do. They'll ignore them, say no to them, not allow them to do things, to express themselves, humiliate them, all sorts of stuff, until one day the devotee just goes, it matters not. Beat me up, do whatever you want to do. I'm still your disciple. Until you get to that point of surrender. All right. That's on true gurus. Now, again, we got gurus out there that aren't true, and they do that to everybody. And they got favorites who give money, right? Oh, this person gives money. They're nice. So I'm going to be nice to them. They give. So you got that shallowness out there too. But I'm talking about the real deal gurus, teachers. And the real ones aren't going to tell you they're the real ones.
Well, and Reverend Bill, I think part of the issue is like, you know, in the West, right, you're supposed to set boundaries and how you're treated. And then, but in the East, it's not so much like anger, but it's just like, I feel like things to push one's buttons, like being censored or being whatever, you know, and you just like, you have to like somehow give it the benefit of the doubt. Oh, there must be another reason, right? Because my normal thinking mind would be like, this seems crazy. But then like, you know, but then you have to just say like, oh, well, maybe there's something going on here. And I just, you know, have faith in it. And I think that's like the hard thing, is how to know how to be in your mind.
Here's the tricky part of all that. A lesser guru, to their own stupidity, arrogance, egotist personality, they can do all kinds of crazy stuff. And in truth, it's all crazy stuff. But all the devotees, the gatekeepers, will say, we're not at his level, we don't understand. Whatever. If the guru, you know, breaks wind, that's called a fart in America anyway. If they break wind, oh, that's a blessing. You know, if he burps, that's a blessing. If he yells at me and he cusses and he's short-tempered and he's mean to women, all that, we don't understand. He's doing that to test us. It's our lesson. Well, for the lesser ones, you got to be able to read. Is that an enlightened being doing that to me to push my buttons? Or is this just an arrogant, egotistical person that doesn't, you know, that is prejudiced against women or whatever, or it's egotistical? So that's something that the individual devotee is going to have to look at. I'm telling you, no harm, no foul. If you believe that the guru has your best interests of hearts at heart, and you see the guru, to jump back again, if you see that guru as God within them, and you overlook them as personalities, then this thing is academic. It's like, it doesn't make any difference. God is always testing you. Don't get angry. Take your pride, put it aside, be humble. You can never be too humble. As I tell people, hey, I met a guy who told me he was the most humblest man in the world. I mean, how can I beat that? So you never can get too much love. At least I've never met anybody that told me, please don't give me any more love. I've had enough. If I have any more, I'll burst. I've never met anybody that said that. You can never get too many hugs, except nowadays with the virus, don't give me any hugs. But, you know, emotionally, you can never get too many hugs. You can never get too many compliments. But we can get too much of ourselves, you know, too full of ourselves. That we can get too much of. So you got to take you and you got to take it out of the picture. Just say, all of us are special. And I talked about this many times with you, Jennifer. There is no, everybody's special, but nobody's special, right? Because you're all God, so everybody's special. So the guru does, you want the guru to recognize you as special. You're there. You're breathing, you know, flesh and blood, human being with a spirit in it. You're a part of this whole thing. We're all one. So, yeah. So it's so easy to get involved in this personality trap. And when you join an organization, whatever spiritual organization, I don't care if it's Catholic Church, through any organized religion, most especially organized groups, meditation groups and New Age groups, and even clubs. And I mean, I don't care if you belong to American Legion or whatever organization you belong to, there's a pecking order, there's a hierarchy. Nobody wants to join anything after a while that they don't want to be the leader of someday or the teacher of. You take somebody who learns karate. That's good enough. You learn karate, right? What's the next thing? Well, now I want to be a karate teacher. Now I want my yellow belt. I want my blue belt. I want my purple belt. I want my black, brown, whatever color. You want to keep going up to 8 more belts. Now you want degrees of those belts. You want to keep getting a report card showing you're better than somebody else. I saw that in the scuba business. Back when I was scuba diving 60 years ago, there wasn't any certifications. You know, you could go into a dive shop and fill up your scuba tank with air. No big deal. Then I was working at a dive shop. And then they decided, you know what? We need to sell people licenses. And we can't just have these old funky tanks. We got to have the new tanks, the new equipment. And so we got to have a certification. We're not going to fill a tank unless they're a certified diver, right? They've taken our course, and we're going to teach them to use this equipment. We're going to show them they can't use the old tank with the pipe threads in it. Oh, that's dangerous. Except they were using those for 20 years, 30 years before. And they can't use a double hose regulator. Oh, those things are archaic. We got to go to the single hose regulator, you know, the Scuba Pro, no less, or, you know, Aqua Pro, something, right? And once they get the certification, that wasn't good enough. A few years later, then we had a ocean water, a senior advanced certifications, and a beach master verification, and a teacher, and then a teacher of senior divers, and a teacher of teachers. And I mean, one of the organizations, I took way back, right? One of the organizations I got a certification with, and I got it with PADI, I got it with NASDS, I got it with SSI, YMCA, now I got them all, right? But a lot of them are in the hundreds, like 108. I'm the 108th senior diver instructor for one organization. And I think they're in the 30,000 range or something for instructors now. But it was like, and always I'm that high up instead of a lower number was, there was a bunch of us that were already certified by another group, and they just said, okay, we'll just take these guys at alphabetically, and we'll just assign them a number. Otherwise, I could have been number 17 if I'd been Albert as a last name, for example. Anyway, but it was a gig. Oh, I'm number 108. Who cares? Everybody was, you could dive. In other words, I could take James or Jennifer or anybody up here, and I could teach you to scuba dive in 10 minutes. 10 minutes in a swimming pool, put the gear on you. But we'd give a 2-month-long course with almost 2 hours of classroom a day and an hour in the pool and a pool checkout and then 5 trips to the ocean. I could teach you in 10 minutes in a pool, take you out the ocean, and one day you're diving. You know. So
I think definitely, like in America, there's definitely this want for, like, you know, this progression. You know, when you learn swimming, you're like the tadpole, and then you're the little fish.
Exactly.
So there's this kind of like desire for that grasping. I know, like, time has just really flown, and I just want to make sure that we give the audience time to ask questions as well. So I wonder if people either want to, you know, in the participant chat list, there's a way to raise your hand electronically if you click on that. Or you can wave your hand if I can see you, and I can call on you. The first question was written in the chat menu, and he wanted to ask for you to describe your experience with Shree Guru Babaji.
With who? Babaji?
Yeah, and what that was like.
Which time?
What do you feel on that time? What he has told? Did you offer anything to him to eat? Can you please explain, sir?
Okay, Jennifer, I had trouble hearing it. Why don't you repeat that?
He said, did you offer anything to him? What did it feel like when you met him? What was it like?
All right, feel like is probably a better question than there are no words. Okay? There is only light and love, and of course the transfigured figure of the very presence of Babaji. But it's not a conversation. And here, this is going to sound really odd. It's going to sound, who does he think he is? And there's no humility there. And maybe all that's true. Maybe I'm a crazy guy with no humility. But when these things happen to me, I'm just like I am right now. There's not like this, whoa, wow, there was no excitement. There was just, if I was a stick of butter on the stove, I'd be melting. It would just slowly melt and dissolve. It was just love. It was transformative. It was an energy that transforms, literally. One experience with him would last you eternity. knowing love at a level beyond words. I've had, I'll only talk about the ones I've made publicly. Publicly, I've made known 4 incidences. Then the first time, I'll have to back up because I just said I don't get excited, except for the first time.
Did you speak with him, sir?
What was that? I'll tell you the story about the first time, and maybe that'll answer your question here. But the first time I was sitting around a campfire in Pune, outside of Pune in the jungle, this ashram, and the guru went to bed, and there was just a handful of disciples sitting around this campfire, this sacred fire, and they all started telling spooky stories from their, ghost stories from their life, demon stories, possession story, all these things that you hear in India and elsewhere and stuff, and I'm hearing all this stuff and I'm going, and I tell the group, I said, nothing scares me. Come on, nothing scares me. I've seen demons. I've seen war. I've seen death. I've seen ghosts. I've seen it all. Nothing scares me. And I'm saying this at a very sacred place, this ashram, which I warn you right now, anytime you challenge the universe, especially at a high level, sacred, vibrating place, never challenge the universe to a contest. I made this bold, egotistical statement, right? Nothing scares me. Even if Billy was here, he would laugh. Is Billy here? All right, there he is. All right, so the fire goes out. I go back to my little bungalow. I'm all by myself. And I open up the door, and it's a totally dark room. And when I look in with my flashlight, there, sitting on my bed, in a blaze of glowing light, is Babaji, just like you see him drawn in the books, like autobiography, just like that. Just boom, long black hair, young, vibrant face, shiny, almost like wet skin. And he's staring at me. And these laser beams are coming from his eyes. I think they're blue or violet or something. They're just coming to me. And I'm feeling these beams on me. And my heart goes, I thought I was having a heart attack. And I throw the flashlight up. It was like this old movie that nobody's probably seen now, but there was an old movie. It was called 2001 Space Odyssey. And they have these apes. They're throwing bones up, and the bones flip around the sky. Anyway, you have to see the movie. But anyway, I throw my flashlight up, and it rotates from the air in slow motion. And it comes down, spins around the floor. And I'm down on the floor, afraid to look up. I'm finding my flashlight, and I'm going, as I take the flashlight, and I shine it on the bed, and nobody's there. He's gone. And so, to my great relief, I go, instead of saying praise, I saw Babaji. I'm saying, thank God nobody saw me see this, because I just told everybody I wasn't afraid of anything. But thank God there's no witnesses. But my heart was going, blah, 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 blah. So the next day, I'm walking across the ashram in the morning, and I hear these little feet behind me, and it's Gurnath. And he comes up from behind me, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, Biel, I thought those things weren't supposed to scare you. And then at the morning breakfast, we're having tea and nibbling on something. I don't know what it was. He says, Biel, why don't you tell him what happened last night before I do? So he made me tell the story. So everybody knows that I got scared. That was my first time of seeing Babaji, but that was because I challenged the universe that nobody would scare me. But since then, they've been nothing but divine, wonderful, loving, compassionate experiences that have been healing, very literally healing in nature. One on my bed after my open heart surgery that helped me heal.
And Bill, maybe you might just say like who Sri Guru Babaji is, because some of in the group may not know who that is.
For those that have read Autobiography of a Yogi, and that's probably most of your audience, I would guess, Yogananda talked about meeting this great avatar. And he didn't talk much about his origins or who he was or what he is. Other great saints and sages and gurus have met him. In fact, it's rumored that this deathless guru has been helping everybody from Krishna to Jesus to everybody throughout the ages. That he's here as a guardian of creation, basically for this earth's many cycles. And that he'll be here throughout creation, helping guide by helping people elevate. And he's the one that reintroduced Kriya Yoga, the technique, to Sirateshwar's guru, Larry Masha, in the Himalayan mountains. And that place is now just referred to as Babaji's Cave. There's other people that have like Babaji's Cave, but it's a different Babaji or a different situation. The Babaji's Cave that I always refer to is the one from the autobiography, where he actually reintroduced it and things happened there. And so mankind was given this technique of liberation where they could overcome great amounts of karma through a meditation technique, Kundalini raising energy technique. That is the Babaji that I speak of. A lot of the great ones say that he's much more than just an avatar, that he's been around since the beginning of this cycle of the earth. So all I know is he's everything. He's everything. And he's love. And having had the experience multiple times is more than a blessing. It's more than I needed apparently, but by God's graces I got that. So I was told to share those for the events that I did. I was ordered to share them. Otherwise, I would have never talked about them. That's why I don't talk about the other ones. The other ones have not been ordered to share. A lot of things in my life I haven't shared. And I shared so much, people got to say, what's he talking about? He shared 1,000 things, right? So it's not always good to share sacred things. So unless you're told to do so, then when you have these sacred things happen, hold them in your heart. Because when you share them, they're analyzed, they're criticized, they're changed, they're altered. But for those out there that haven't had the experience, they have to know that miracles still continue to happen every day, every moment. It's just a matter of focusing on it. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Bill. Really appreciate it. And then the second question from Maggie, she said, do you have any books to recommend on dealing with loss and grief in this time? You know, there's probably a lot of hardship going through with the pandemic.
Loss and grief. Wow. There's several books out there that I've read. But at the level of yogis or people practicing meditation, they're more elementary school. I mean, it's the basics. I keep looking for that book that gives a bigger picture. There's to go back down to a lower level, because I don't think it's at the highest level. I was enjoying this guy. I was telling, I think I was telling Jennifer about that Silicon Valley guy, Mo. Wrote a book called Solve for
Happiness.
Peace, or Solve for
Happiness, right?
Happiness. That's what it was. Solve for Happy. But those are all basic stuff. That's good. It's basic. I'll give you my personal formula and maybe I'm gonna have to write my own pamphlet. I don't know if there's a book in it, but there's at least maybe an e-book, some 40, 50 pages. I think that knowing the overall picture where we're all going. Why are we here? What are we supposed to learn? What are these lessons? What's important? What's not important? What's worth fighting for? What's not? What's big stuff? What's small stuff? that kind of thing. At some point in time, you have to realize that grief and pain and hardships happen to everybody. If you live long enough, people are going to die in your life. I'll tell you right now, everybody's parents are going to die. Everybody's children will eventually die. The best you can hope that you outlive them. Your aunts, your uncles, your grandparents are going to die. Your friends are going to die. Everybody but Elvis will die. Right? Is that what they say? So you can't focus on the individuals. You have to focus much bigger and realize that all time is now. If somebody leaves this world that you're grieving over, it's a parent, a friend, a lover, you grieve because you are separated. You feel separated from them. You can't go where they went. And you are grieving because you miss them. They are not grieving. They are not crying. They are joyous that they have left this wonderful world, which when you get to the other side, if somebody asks, hey, do you want to go back? Nobody goes back. That's a rare, rare thing. I mean, you give somebody a chance to go back, ain't too many takers. So handling grief, and it's real. Okay, I don't want to downplay it. You read autobiography of Yogi, and Yogananda had his act together. I mean, he really knew what he was doing, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. He was truly one of those enlightened ones. And he grieved his mother's passing. He even grieved a pet passing. So grieving is a necessary function. If you're a mentally, morally, spiritually healthy human being, you will cry. You will grieve the loss of somebody in your life. I don't want to be around too many people that never cry for anyone, that never mourn anyone. I mean, even I am capable of mourning and crying, you know. But the real question is, does it cripple you emotionally? Does it cripple you spiritually? Does it paralyze you from living the rest of your life? Are you always thinking about it and foregoing doing something because you always got this anchor? This person died and left you alone, and that becomes your new mantra. So there's no time limit on when you got to get past this. I'm not going to tell anybody there is. But everybody has to move on, but you don't have to move on from having loved someone, having a relationship. Okay? So there's a book coming, and if I have to write it myself, I probably will. All right? Somebody asked about books. I hope that answered the question. If not,
Yes, she said thank you.
Okay. Somebody asked a question about in the rainbow body experience, you were one with the universe.
Anon, do you want to ask it yourself, or do you want me to say it out loud, Anon?
Does a rainbow body have some slight hint of ego? Yes, it does have an I-ness. Yes, it has an ego. Because why? It has a body. It has a rainbow body.
And do you want to explain what is the rainbow body? Because some people may not have that.
And by the way, if somebody's looking, because somebody asked about books, let's see if I get this on here. Testimony of Light. Can you read that?
Yes.
All right. I found this book 30 years after having my rainbow body experience. And this lady, she channels this Helen Greaves. She channels this friend of hers, this nun from South Africa that died, and the nun takes her on a journey on the other side and explains, you know, the seven heavens and all that kind of stuff, and then talks about these beings, these rainbow lights, families and things. And I read that and I'm going, because I was trying to explain to people what was going on, and then I read this. I thought, wait a minute, she's heard my talk. She's explaining it kind of like I'm explaining it. But I didn't read this book prior. But this book has been around since first edition of this thing was like 1969, first published, and it's been republished every couple of years. So I recommend reading it. There's a chapter in on rainbow bodies. And it's unique because without getting into heavy details, because we talked about this before, this is a show by itself. It's a video by itself. But basically, it's beyond samadhi experience, where you're not just one with everything around here. You're out in the cosmos. You're out in creation, out there in the, I don't know what word's bigger than the cosmos, but big as all that stuff. And you're one with it. You're expanding, and everything's a part of you. It's all absorbed within you. You're one. But you're in this filament of light, this rainbow, literally like a rainbow, which has no real substance to it, but and this rainbow that you're expanding with and on, you're not alone. You're not alone. It's like multiple souls, many souls are creating this rainbow. It's like your finger is part of your body, but it's you, but it's not you. The cells in your fingers, they're you, but they're not really part of you. Well, you're like a cell, this whole rainbow. All of you are just, you created together, this rainbow. And this particular rainbow I was on was for souls that it's spiritual beings that evolved to a place where they had a task, they had a job. And their job is periodically to take members of this rainbow and reincarnate in bodies on Earth, and die and come back to the rainbow. And so there's a constant feed of people coming from this rainbow back to the Earth. And this particular rainbow was people coming back to an Earth plane to teach love, teach forgiveness, to help with the spiritual evolution of mankind. There are other rainbow bodies out there that their task is science and physics, and their job is to come into the world and elevate scientific thinking and creation and all these things. There's another group out there is political and philosophy, and their job is to develop leadership for the world and elevate the Martin Luther Kings of the world and George Washingtons, etc. And so there's these different groups of rainbows that are like specialized. Remember I talked about, this is your finger and your cell. Well, all these are like parts of the whole, and each one has a different specialty. And so people come, some are inventors, So that's what I came back feeling and knowing. And again, you'd have to know me to know, am I that crazy? Was the whole thing delusional? But to me, there's no question. Whether anybody in the world, when I shout it from the rooftops and everybody in the world thinks I'm nuts, so be it. I was reluctant at first to say it. I was told to talk about it. Some parts of that experience I'm not allowed to talk about, but some I can, some I don't remember, and then some I'm starting to understand and remember as time goes by. So yeah, that was probably one of the most formidable experiences. One of the things that, other than Babaji, I don't know how you measure that, but it was one of those experiences that altered my perception of life, why I'm here. When things happen, it's not important. It's real easy to say. It's, whole different level. But I was told to share the experience. Read the book, Testimony of Light. It's an oldie but a goodie, but you can still get it probably on Amazon. Good book. So I hope that answered two questions there.
When you were at the Rainbow Body,
Yep.
You were one not only with this planet but with all the other lokas as well.
There was no difference.
Yes.
There was no difference. I was even one with Billy, right, Billy?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. But there was only one separation. there was still the I-ness.
Yeah.
There was still that I, me, I am. And that's what kept me from having a complete dissolving experience, absorption back into God. So as long as you're light or some aspect of anything that's created, then you always have a body because you still got that I-ness. It's not until you, a trillion years from now or whatever it takes, because you may be quite happy someday just floating around the universe as the beam of light going across the universe and the cosmos and feeling nothing but love and bliss. Why would you ever change? Why do you want to give it up? So that's the big ultimate thing, to be reabsorbed, to say, I've been in the playground, I want to go home.
And then James had a follow-on question related to that. James, do you want to ask it yourself? Or do you want me to ask it?
Go and ask.
So the question James had written was, can you recognize others from the rainbow body and what their specialization is?
Yeah, there's others that, actually that question is absolutely yes. And there are people in the rainbow that are ripe and ready and they're rolling. And then there's people in the future now. Okay, remember, all's all now, right? There's people in the future now. In the future, they are part of that rainbow, but I can recognize them anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They reach that level, but it's not in this present now. So to say, yes, they're a member of the rainbow, yeah, they are in the now. And when's the now? The now is now, right? But there's future now coming when we are all highly evolved, when we've all reached that state. But there's people out there that right now, at this Zoom moment, who have limited the scope of who they are by believing who they are right now. They are James Thomas, for example, right? They are Billy, they are Aman, they are whoever they are, and they believe that, and they're in that box. Someday something will happen to open up that microscope so you can look within deeper, and you will reveal that you're something much greater, and always have been. So it's not like you're evolving to get there. You've always been there. You go through this song and dance dream with God called life, with karma, with reincarnation, with all these pain and suffering and all these things. Anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that's really great, Reverend Bill. And so really appreciate that about the rainbow body. And the next question from Lucky was, have you seen in your waking visions or in your dreams extraterrestrial beings? And how do you make out what they're trying to communicate to you?
Absolutely. Number one, they always talk about beings from outer space, I'm telling you, everything's in the same space. Maybe in the creative world, you can bend light and you can travel and there's something in another planet. But I'm telling you that in my world, everything happens in the same space. So it's a matter of opening the door. And yes, there are intelligent spiritual beings in other dimensions. There's also, I hate to say this, there's beings in lower dimensions. Because most people want to know about the higher dimensions, right? But there's also lower, it's hard to believe there could be a lower dimension than the earth, right? But there's even places that are lower than the earth. But yes, we can see them. We get glimpses of them every once in a while. But I mean, people see ghosts. What are ghosts? Those are salient beings that have left, and they're kind of heading to the astral world. Maybe they're not there yet. They're still hanging on. But I'm talking about things that people have identified as aliens or whatever. Yes, look differently. And yes, light beams. And and life forms that are actually balls of light, living light. Yes, I've seen it. This is a common occurrence. And, but to give you an experiment, this may be something people should try. Sometimes you could split these dimensions. At least I did this as a child. So I don't want to treat people like children, but it's like when you're a kid, you look in the mirror. Go in the mirror, a dark room, just enough light to see the mirror, just so you see your face. And just do a staring contest with your own eyes. If you stare long enough, the rest of you is disappearing and disappearing. And pretty soon, you're someplace, you've gone to another dimension. You're not there in that mirror. You're in the mirror. You're beyond it. You're behind the looking glass. It's the same thing when you're out in nature someplace and you're looking at a tree and you want to feel the energy of the tree and stuff. Don't stare directly at, just stir just a little, your gaze just slightly off the edge of looking at the tree and stare. And you will see waves of energy coming off the leaves or the flower or the animal. Same thing when you're looking at somebody's aura. If you look at the edges around them and you focus on the edges of them going out, depending on who they are, it could be just an inch or two. Some people it's multiple feet, some people it's yards. But there's a band of light. There is a light around each one of us, some very dimly lit, some very difficult to see, some blinding. But if you look with wisdom and unblinking focus, you can see it. So you try to see your own, you could look in the mirror, go back to the mirror again, and try to see your own aura. These are little things I'm telling you that as a kid I did, and it's possible, yes, you can do it. As a kid, I used to lay on the ground, and me and my little sister, 4 or 5 years old, we'd look up at the clouds, and we'd pick a cloud, and we'd have a contest who could dissolve their cloud quicker, who could move it to point A to point B. We were doing it. Nobody told us we couldn't do it. So I'm telling you that you're capable of seeing things and doing things that are only limited to your own imagination and your own power of belief. But splitting dimensions and going into another dimension is just simply a matter of a meditative state and a refocusing. It's like you want to know what's happening you want to know what's going to happen 100 years from now, slide down the scale. You know, it's all now, right? You just take a little trip. It's there, it's waiting for you. But what you do today in the now can change not only the future, but it can also change the past. That's why meditation and prayer is very important, because we all have potentialities of our future. That's why you can get a prediction done and it comes back and not everything's, it's never 100%. Because the fact that you know something's going to happen changes your reaction on what you do. So knowing the future, like if you know the future about somebody, like say I went to your house and I meet your brother-in-law or somebody, you know, and I look at him and I go, this guy's going to drink himself to death. He's going to commit suicide. What's going on? He has to change. He has to stop drinking. He's got to get a good diet. He's got to get a job. He's got, you know what I mean? And if I tell the guy that, if the guy listens to that and takes action, then he's changed his potential future. But if he doesn't, he's going to meet that future. So we all have these potential futures. You're always standing at a crossroads in your life. Should I steal this? And if I get caught, I go to jail. There's a new future. Should I take care of my health? Should I go to college? Should I get a job? Should I be kind to this person? Should I forgive? All these choices you make every day, it's like a roulette wheel. You're changing your potential future. You go for a drive. Should I take that turn? Should I take that turn? Each one leads you to a different future. So be careful, because you're in the driver's seat today, in the now. And if you want a better future, a more loving, compassionate, kind future, then live that lifestyle now. Be kind to others, be compassionate, give. Make choices that are kind and compassionate, not only to others, but to yourself. So I don't know what the question was, but I hope that answered it.
Thank you, Reverend Miller. That's really great. And then I just wanted to, as I know we kind of are going over time, I just wanted to ask one question from my son, and he wanted to ask you what your biggest spiritual experience has been. What do you consider your biggest spiritual experience?
This is going to sound mundane, and he won't understand. When I think it was seeing the birth of both my children. As crazy as that sounds, it's experience that so many people have. But there's nothing like watching a fresh incarnation materializing into your life. And you think, I had a part of that. Not as much as my poor wife had to go through all the pain and suffering, but you know, it's a beautiful thing. It's like, it's the closest that you're ever going to become in your life to being a part of the Creator. You just created this life at this level. And that to me is a true miracle. Hi, Daniel. So it's a true miracle. So children, and when you get old enough, I don't think anybody here is old enough, but when you get old enough, grandchildren are even better. You don't have to discipline. All right. So giving birth to children and bringing children into your life, that miracle of birth is the greatest miracle. And that's why I tell people, don't throw that away. You know, I see people, and I've never condemned anybody for having an abortion. That's their choice. But I look at that and I said, you denied a soul an entry point. And who better a parent could be than you? Unless you weren't going to be a great parent. I mean, you're in jail or something or doing drugs. But I think that having children brings the best of us out. And then you say, well, look at all these bad parents out there. And I got to tell you, they're better for that than they were before. It did improve them a little bit. So being a parent is a hard job. That's the hardest job. When you give birth to a child and you bring them home, the hospital doesn't give you a book that says Children 101, right? Or Children for Dummies, which would have been my case, right? I didn't know how to change a diaper. So there's no handbook on how to love them except love. And what's the good part is when you're young and have children, you grow up with them. I got a son that in 200 and some days, he's retiring from the Highway Patrol. He's retiring 200 and some days. He's retiring. I mean, that's it. He doesn't have to work anymore. I got to go. Wow, that's my son. I changed that little butt of his, right? But come on, you know, he's going to retire. So I know that doesn't make any sense to your children, Jennifer, but it does to you. Children are God's gift to us, and we should not abuse that gift. We should appreciate that gift. And when they're young, we should spend all the time we can with them. If, you know, if you got to go to a business thing, if you got to, you know, if you got a party, you got to go to, take a look at it. You know, when my children were growing up, my wife and I never went to any parties. We didn't go anywhere. In other words, if you invited us someplace and our children weren't invited, we didn't go. If our children were welcome to come, we didn't go. With one exception, she had a best friend. She was a bridesmaid. They had a rule: no children at the party. But it was 4 hours long. We were going to be back home, and my and the kids' grandparents, my wife's parents. Oh, let us have the children. Let us. So they got 4 hours with the children. So it was a blessing for them. But that was the only time that we ever had a babysitter or anything. It was like, boom. I try to enjoy every moment. Try to do the same thing when my grandchildren were little. Anytime I was ever asked to babysit, I babysit my grandchildren, even to this day. even though now they're in high school, they go, Grandpa, we don't need a babysitter. Well, okay, well, check on the phone. How you doing? Right. So, no, I don't think I'll ever outgrow that. That is the greatest miracle. But there's also another miracle. I've seen so many. It's like when somebody's been mean and nasty to you. This is for more in line with maybe what he's looking for. I had some people that were really mean and nasty to me in my life, made my life totally miserable. I mean, vicious. And I didn't see them for 18 years. But those 18 years, I prayed for them extensively. Bye. Anyway, so prayed for them extensively. And when I met him 18 years later, it was like so much love. It's like the person always loved me. It was a beautiful thing. So by forgiving somebody and not getting angry back at him and just sending him love for 18 years, prayed for him night and day, 18 years long. To me, that's a miracle. It's a called miracle of love. So for your son's question or your daughter, whoever asked it, if they're in school and somebody's mean and nasty to them, or they got a bad teacher, or they got somebody, a parent or somebody that's hurt their feelings, their job is to love them. They don't have to like them. They don't have to prove what they did to them, but their job is to always love them. And if they love them, great miracles will come. Great miracles. Love is the seed of all miracles. And your devotion and your prayers is the rain that grows those seeds. And you as a human being get joy from picking that crop later on. That's your joy, that's your bliss. So that's the full cycle. Anyway,
Well,
hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. And David was listening, so really appreciate it. And I guess I know we've kind of gone over, so I was wondering, just one person had asked if you would say a blessing for the group before we conclude, and if you have any concluding remarks. And we really thank you for your time.
Okay. Well, when you ask me to do something like that, that puts me up above the group, which I don't want to be. This is a group of friends and acquaintances. Remember your mantra should be, yeah, Bill's a nice guy. He's just a fat old Irishman, likes to talk, but we like him. That's good enough. That's all I need, right? But let us all bless each other. Let us all close our eyes, put our hand on our heart where we can feel the love, and let us send love to each of us, and let us send love to all God's creatures, all the animals, cats, dogs, birds out there, and all the people that are fighting the virus. And believe it or not, bless the politician that you hate the most. Ask God to bless them because they need it the most. So pick and choose whatever. Bless all of them. We're all in this thing together. We ask this in your name. Whoever you may worship, whether it be Jesus or Krishna or Buddha or your guru or Babaji. In your divine shadow, we all fall. Amen. So let nobody be beneath anyone. Let everybody realize that we are all one. And we're all going to the same place. So if anybody, after you stop recording, anybody wants to stay on here afterwards and just chit chat, I'll stay. So thank you very much for joining us. And I'll just sit here as you turn it off, and those who want to stay, stay.
Thank you so much, Reverend Bill. Really, really appreciate it. Our love and blessings. And just want to also say a prayer for Nora and her mom who's fighting cancer. May they be well. Thank you for your grace. So thank you, Reverend. I'm going to stop now.